Good evening, guys, and thank you for joining tonight's meeting. Hopefully it'll be respectively quick. Are we all ready? It's 5, and Jane, you can hear me okay, correct? Jane? I'm assuming you're there.
Yes,
Okay,
I can hear you.
thank you very much. Okay, all right, guys, it's September 1st. It's 5:15. Sorry for the technical difficulties. But I just want you to know, I hope you guys read my little note I put up there trying to tell you guys what to do. I forgot about the chat feature, so if you ever have
Down.
you can do that. Brett, are you back online, Brett? Wow, you're taking up a lot of, hold on one second, guys. Okay. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting will be recorded and can be found on the Lunenburg Access Channel YouTube within 48 hours of the meeting. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19 virus, is currently following the guidance of the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the viruses and steps communities can take to prevent the spread of the town facilities are open from 10 to 2 by appointment outside those hours. In accordance with the governor suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely on Zoom. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely, use your computer. Please refer to the town website for the link on Zoom, or from telephone, dial toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter web bar ID 851-3433-6655. If you are not registered with Zoom, you will be asked for your name and email address. Please note, no participant ID is needed. Just press the pound sign when asked. Telephone units may dial 9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computers, apps, users may use the raise hand feature and request to speak. I'd like to do a roll call before we start, and I'm going to go by my screen. Mike?
Here.
Carl?
Here.
John?
Here.
And Brett? Okay, I'm just going to text Brett as we're talking. And Jack, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Brett, is that you? 978-582-7248.
That's me, Dave Rogers.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good. I still can't see you on TV.
Are you on, we're not on TV, we're on Zoom. Are you on Zoom?
Well, this is how I've done it before. You know, you just channel 8, and you know, the selectmen's meeting come in, and maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know.
Look at the bottom of your screen and see if you have a little icon down there for a camera. There's a little camera.
Yeah, this is not being broadcast on the
Yeah,
public
we're not
access.
live. Yeah, we're not live, Dave. You're on a telephone, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
That's why we're not live.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I'll make other arrangements. Thanks, Dave.
Oh, no, you can stay on. Let me just call the meeting to order. Okay,
Go ahead. Yeah.
okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Starting off with an announcement. It's with sadness to say that we lost a member of our sewer commission last week in Butch Bellotta. And I just want to send our condolences to Jane, Paul, Joey, and the family of the Bellotta family. And I also wanted to thank Butch for everything he's done for not only for the sewer commission, but for the town of Lunenburg. So Godspeed, Butch. The current business today is going to be the RFP for the pump stations, operational maintenance, and the bid reward. And hopefully you all got the sheet as far as the hourly rates. Did you guys get those? You should have got them again on a notice today. And Dave, is there anything you want to talk about now or after the presentation?
No. I'll go along with the public comment when it's appropriate.
Okay. The first thing I'd like to talk about would be the proposals that we got for the two companies. Last week when we talked about this, we discussed how we're going to do it procedurally wise and looking at the rates. Over the last couple of days, working with Heather and working with Jack, we've asked for them to do a couple of other things as far as the checking out the references and also checking out the companies themselves, calling them. And what we did was we used a clarification sheet, and I'm going to let Jack discuss that in a second. I wanted to have someone talk to them that's going to be working the system with them, and so we can get all the information and before we make a decision. So without ado, Jack, I'd like to let you start, and we can start with what you did.
Okay. So it was my task to basically check references, simply put. So I started with a list of questions that included, but not limited to, response time, accessibility, what they felt their reliability was, how they communicated with staff with whom they worked, therefore how they communicate with us, and perhaps what their strong points were and their weak points. But stepping back for just a moment, as soon as Barb and I opened the I'll call it the bids, the RFP, it became clear that they were both very close on the base contract. I mean, within $200, which is a virtual tie. And like I do most of the time, go right to the bottom line. And I put the sheets side by side in terms of the hourly rates. And it became alarmingly clear that the rates for Watermark per hour based on the time of day were each significantly lower than those bid by MP. They were in the high 60s to the low 70s, whereas MP was in the 200s to the low 300 mark. So right away, I have to admit to, when I saw that and having opened up tens and tens of bids, I said to Barb before reading it, further, that this is going to be extremely difficult not to award to a bid that is so significantly lower than the other. But what to keep in mind on bids is that when you set out a big project and let's say it's you have 3 or 4 bidders and you get a bid that's $1.2 million, another's $1.5 million, maybe $950, and then you have one that's $300,000. Well, we're in the business of taking low bidder, but immediately some red flags go off. So when I spoke to the town manager and Dave, I believe you were on that call. In fact, you set up that call.
Yes.
An RFP is a little different. So in order to follow procurement to a T, I could check references and speak freely with those folks. But if I were to speak to the Watermark folks, I would have to ask for clarification. So that sort of sets the stage at where I took off, what I was feeling, and where I went for that. They offered 7 references. I was able, some of these, or a lot of these, more than half are government organizations and run by the DEP. So of the 7, I was only able to speak with 4 of them. People that answered the phone representing DEP as a phone message were not in the office. They were out of the office. They didn't give an email or another number. So suffice to say, I couldn't speak to a few of them. But the ones with whom I spoke, the message became very clear. The folks at Watermark work in Dracut, which is the only reference that mirrors what we would ask them to do in Lunenburg. In other words, wastewater pump stations and a sewer system. And when I spoke to the gentleman in Drake, he said they had just begun the contract. For 2 months, they had worked in Drake, and he didn't feel comfortable with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, so to speak. He just wasn't comfortable saying they're great, or we find, you know, shortcomings. And you have to understand, 2 months is not fair for somebody to make a recommendation. But to an individual, in the next number of references, it's clear that what Watermark does is not what we're looking to have done. Their forte is described as environmental services. The short explanation is they do a lot of well drilling, water monitoring, water remediation. Let's take an example in our own town, the landfill area. We have monitoring wells. This is on a very small scale. If those wells were to come out in a dangerous level of any chemical, then we would hire somebody like Watermark to come in, take samples, add to the water chemicals, adjust the pH level so that what was entering the environment downstream of the monitoring wells would be acceptable to the environment to which they were entered. They do this on a much larger scale throughout the whole East Coast. For instance, they do Superfund sites. Superfund sites being big old dumps and landfills where you know they're trying to either, you know, they're trying to remediate the area, perhaps build a park or playing fields on that. But what's necessary is to monitor the water or anything leaving that area. As such, they would either drill the well or monitor the well or otherwise monitor the water source as it entered, the water as it left the area. And in some large cases, like the Army Corps of Engineers, where they work, and they also work in Bourne at Camp Edwards, where the, you know, chemicals are in use, all that water would come to a central location where it would be tested, treated if necessary, and then put into an appropriate other body of water, perhaps a wetland, perhaps a retention area. In the town of Sutton, they have, as their second reference, Sutton Public Schools. Well, Sutton is sort of where we were many years ago. They're struggling with sewering their municipal buildings, but presently they have their schools emptying into this treatment basin, which empties into a what sounds like a just enormous retention area, as it was described to me. So they test the water in this large basin, and they add to the water and treat the water with chemicals or in such a way that once it gets to the retention basin, it's cleaner, for lack of a better term. They also work in some, I don't have, facility where it's a government facility where it's very high security. They make you know, weaponry. So obviously they have a very high clearance, and I'm sure they're very good at what they do to have all these government contracts, but they don't do what we would be asking them to do. And as I said, not to be redundant, in Drake is where if we had a number of those Drake references, or if they had been in Drake for a year or a couple of years, then that might hold some weight. So there's the references. But furthermore, when I spoke to the, I think it's Mr. Hardy of Watermark, or Hanley, he was very candid, and I made sure to ask him to tell him that I was asking for clarification, because as far as RFPs go, that's the only discussion you can have. So it became clear as he spoke to me about the stable of subcontractors that he has. He's very proud of that. And that is an advantage if you're a contractor and you can call up an electrician, you can call up a plumber, an excavator, anybody you need. But his people only go and sort of monitor and check things out. And in his own words, if we need something welded, if we need an electrician, those are the two examples he used, then we have all these subcontractors that will readily respond. So I asked him then that the hourly rate that you put on the form then is not the hourly rate that we would be paying for repairs. And he said, no, what you'd pay for repairs would be, if it was an emergency, we'd work it out. We'd call you or call Barb, and we would have a price sort of on the fly. And if it was a planned repair, we would do our due diligence and get 3 bids. And then we would show you the 3 bids, and we would take the lowest responsible bidder. That changes these numbers completely. He could not tell me beyond, in his words, monitoring, checking things out at that price that he submitted, which was the high 60s to the low 70s throughout the course of the day and holidays. So we would be paying, when we had any sort of repair or electrical problem, he would call in these subcontractors and we would be paying that rate, which he did not make clear. He did not submit that rate. And he said he didn't submit it because he said that rate would be variable, even though, rest assured, he would take the low bidder. He couldn't guarantee that rate in any of those, plumbers, electricians, welders, that sort of thing. So that's the short of it. I don't know if any of you had a chance to go to their website. I don't want to be redundant, but I think if you go to Watermark, you understand what I just told you, and it'll be very clear. They perform environmental services, as I discussed, or as I told you, but there's no municipal experience, and there's no experience save 2 months of doing those tasks that we expect them to do. In that case, contrary to how I felt when I opened up the bids, I guess the devil we know is better than the devil we don't. We know what the base contract is going to be. We know what the hourly rates are going to be. We know the work that we're going to get through having the advantage of having them serve in an interim. So it would be my recommendation. I understand I have no vote. It's fine. And my recommendation to go with EMPI for the reasons I just spoke of.
First of all, I just want to thank Jack and Barb. When we looked at these numbers, I'm sure you guys did too, and saying, wow, what a big difference on these numbers, that there had to be a reason why. And so I just want to thank Heather and Jack and Bob for getting this together and getting us some answers on what's our next step. So what I want to do is go around the room and let you talk to Jack. And we'll start with Mike. And hold on, Mike, I think you're muted. You want to mute yourself there, Mike?
Yep.
So if you have any questions, we'll start with you.
No, I don't have any questions. I understand now why there's a difference between Watermark's and EMPI's prices. It sounds like with Watermark, we're kind of like at the mercy of what their subcontractors are going to do for us. Reviewing it, I mean, going through their paperwork, I did kind of look like Watermark has a lot of experience as far as engineering wise, but the technicians, like Jack was saying, I don't think they have it. So I kind of agree with Jack that going with EMPI would probably be the better choice as far as their experience.
Okay. Anything else, Mike, you can think of before we move on? This is an important decision for this commission tonight, so I just want to make sure you're happy with it. Now,
Yep.
keep in mind also, the company that's currently working for us is doing a pretty good job. And we need to know exactly what they can do within the 10 hours and stuff. And Jack, that's going to be more of a question that I'm sure these commissioners are going to ask you. But I can also say that they're doing a very good job at what they've been doing so far from what I see. And we'll get that as we keep on going, Jack. Next one is Carl Luck, Mr. Luck.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, at this point, are we just addressing Jack's comments and asking Jack questions, or are we expressing all of our comments? And
Express all your comments.
okay,
I mean, obviously,
Great, thank you.
start with your questions first.
yeah, good, we'll do. Yeah, I guess I didn't hear any comments on the reference checks for MP. I know we have our own history, which is good, at least with Al, not with MP necessarily, but with Al. I don't understand the MP references, what they do, municipality work, who they work for. So Jack, could you elaborate on the discussions you had on the reference checks on MP?
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't in any depth. I mean, we've had them on board for some months. Barb and I spoke to Al. He was his reference. I mean, the best reference we have is her with the billing, her with the communication with the people that are there. Barbara's interaction, not only with Al, but with, you know, his back office support. It's a very small organization. And because we're so pleased with it, I felt that stood alone.
So we didn't do any checks or any other. Do they do other work for the municipalities?
I'm sorry, Carl, you broke up.
Do they have contracts with other municipalities?
Yeah, I didn't check into that.
So again, I mean, we know Al, and you know, Al did a good job for us at Small Water, and I'm sure he's continuing to do a good job for us in the interim. But we also know with Small Water, and a little bit of our own experience in-house, you can't run a business on a person. When Small Water lost Al, we went downhill pretty quick. So I think to keep a level playing field in the decision, we really need to see what MP is. Right? We know Al again, but we don't know the company Al works for, and there's no guarantee that Al is going to be there 2 weeks from now. Al's working on his electrician license, which sounds like, and you probably have more detail, but just from afar looking at what's written, it sounds like Al kind of went there to get an electrician's license to broaden his skills and increase his labor rate. I'm sure electricians do better than Al was doing. So so I guess that's a gap. We don't know what the company MP has for the customers and so forth. And if Al, something, God forbid, happens to Al tomorrow, or I don't know what the company, I don't know much of anything about the company that we'd be doing this with. On the subcontractors, it's a really good point. We don't know what those rates will be. I don't know how much of our other activities, not the pump station, which is the base contract, but when something happens and they need to pull a pump or whatever, I don't know how much welding there is or electrical work or whatever. But doesn't MP have the same issue when if we need welding? MP is probably going to bring in a contractor too, and we don't know what those rates are. So isn't that pretty similar situation when it comes to subcontractors and not knowing what the cost is when they bring subcontractors in?
I'm not here to give my opinion. I'm just here to give you what I gathered. So that may or may not be true. I know, having worked with MP for some months, that they do a lot of things in-house that it appeared to me, in my opinion, Watermark would have to subcontract. You're exactly correct insofar as when subcontractors are called, we're at the mercy of their rate. There shouldn't be any markup. But yeah, I would say that MP has and does more than it was suggested to me that Watermark would do. But we don't know what we're going to have for emergencies. We don't know how extensive the emergencies are going to be, or how much of that would be outsourced. I do know that in terms of the generators, Al does or MP does what we had described as the small service. When we had a minor and a major. He does the minors routinely. I'm certain that if we had the other vendor, that we would be looking at a major and a minor service, since they do none of that on their own. But in terms of proceeding through the year and dealing with emergencies here and there, how much would be able to be done in-house with one vendor to another, I can't be sure definitively. It appears to me that some of those are more likely to be handled by MP than the other. And you sort of circle back to why we're having these discussions at all, is that we felt that, at least initially, Swiss was doing their due diligence. And when we saw that deteriorating, not to be disrespectful, but when we saw their work deteriorating, we also saw the emergency calls rise. So I think it's important that we have someone there that can do the small things, part of the large things, and has a history of doing their due diligence and clearly minimizing, at least in our history, short history of the sewer as it is, minimizing the emergency calls, as we saw happen with our previous vendor.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The minimizing emergency calls is really should be the goal. But and I could see that MP, MP, from what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't have much other information about MP. I went on their website and read all their resumes. It sounds like it's basically now a three-man company. The originator, who's like my age, his son, both of them are basically electricians, and now Al, who has a mechanical background and diesels and things, so I see he could be doing the minor maintenance with the generators, and is becoming an electrician. But as far as I can tell, that's the entire staff. Is that correct, Jack?
As far as I know, and we're about the same age, Carl, so
Yeah.
they
Oh.
just coincidentally, Al did say that they had just hired, for what it's worth, a fourth person. I don't know anything about that individual, but since we're on the topic of staff, as far as I know, there are now 4 people. I don't know what role he plays, but suffice to say, there are 3 principals there, and they just have hired another person. I don't know how many people are on staff at Watermark. There was one reference, and I don't know if it might have been Sutton. Might have been Sutton, who said that he can't believe all the hours that they put in, that they should hire more people. They have these people working an enormous number of hours a week. And we had that discussion, and I think that's sort of a universal problem with hiring, good people and finding good people and keeping them on staff.
Right. Yeah, I think 40 was what they had, 40 people staff, and I don't know how many are capable of supporting us, but they certainly have quite a few people. I guess so. The other things that kind of when I go through the proposals, the labor rate, as you say, certainly jumped out. But to clarify, I asked Barb for some of the recent invoices, but I haven't been able to get them yet. My recollection was that for this interim contract, we were paying MP $110 an hour. Is that correct, Jack?
I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood, Carl. I'd feel much more comfortable if Barb were here. I think your information is probably pretty close to correct, if not entirely correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, because that was a high number to me based on what we were paying for the technician services for the small audit. It kind of jumped out as wow, 110. Now they're jumping to 158, I think the number is for the straight time. Which,
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was alarming to me as well. When I saw
Yeah.
the numbers, I thought they were, I wouldn't say they were excessive. I don't know what else to compare them to, but they were higher. There's no question. They were higher than what we are currently paying in the interim contract.
right, yeah, and to me, maybe it's a result of that's what they can get on the market doing electrician work, and why should they work in our pumps for any less than they can go get some good electrician work? But
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
difficult to
I just
speculate.
know it's a huge number, and it's it's, well, I went through, it's like 210% higher than the number. And when you go to overtime, it's even worse. It goes up to 3 times the other company when you start getting into overtime. And we will have overtime. So I'm very concerned at those rates, what our true costs are going to be. I think you're right. I agree that the base rate is 82 for MP, 80 for for Watermark. It amazes me that they would come out that similar. What did concern me a little, and all the way through the quote process, as the guys will tell you, I was concerned that we were kind of driving the quote to being 10 hours a week, and I understand that's what Al feels all the pump stations need. It seems like an awfully low number to go to 10 pump stations, maybe 3 times a week. That's less than a half an hour per pump station, including travel time. So and MP clearly from the math, they took the labor rate times 10 hours a week times 52 weeks a year, and that's their quote. So it really sends the message to me that they're really only planning on putting 10 hours a week. And it always makes me nervous when a supplier maybe is underestimating the number of hours. What's going to happen if the hours start to creep up? It's a little what happened to us with small water. I think they found themselves underwater, and we're trying to catch up on our back. With Watermark, if you take their quote at the senior tech rate, it comes out to like 20 hours a week, which sounds a lot more realistic on the average for keeping those, to your point, of keeping the pumps going and reliable so we don't have call outs. So Watermark has a lot more wiggle room in that base number than MP does in terms of absorbing some surprises. So I have some concerns there. The materials markup is also doesn't favor MP. It's 20% for MP, and it's only 15% for Watermark. I'm very concerned what the true cost at the end of a year is going to be here, because we for sure are going to have other activities. And Jack, maybe you can help me. Some things, we know, I think that that our operator is going to have some other costs. I don't think the base number includes things like cleaning the sump pumps. What do they call the pumps?
Wet wells.
The wet well. Thank you very much. And I know in the maintenance discussions, that's and even from the third party, lowering those, inspecting and cleaning is very important part of the job. Is that included in the base in your mind, or not?
No, that's an outside, as you said correctly, that's a third party. And it is, in fact, a necessary function, and it would be on our schedule. So whoever was our operator would have a hand perhaps in the subcontractor, but that would be run by us, and that would be a necessary function of the whole operation, regardless of who the operator was. And yes, it would be extra, as would jetting, for instance. Similar thing, which is something I think we should do more of. But that said, yes, it would be extra for both.
Okay, so there's gonna, well, we know there's gonna be call outs, we know there's gonna be other costs. And we know that that MP is, anywhere from, 2 to 3 times the labor rate. And so that could easily, I mean, even if we only have another 10 hours a month, that's another $10,000 a year difference between the two suppliers. And I hope it's not that much, but our recent history says it's not. So, they're very concerned with that. I guess the other thing in my mind that favors the larger company with the broader manpower and staffing, is they work with the government and the regulations. And I suspect that, I don't know, but maybe we need to follow up with them. I suspect they have more training, certifications, understand the requirements better, maybe perhaps even understand things like SCADA better.
Well, I don't disagree with those, but until I learn otherwise, it seems their whole scope of services, at least through the references and the projects that they put forward, Camp Edwards and Bourne, their certifications may be there. They may be very good. It's just that they're in a different niche, if I can call it that. They're in a different business. Water testing, water treatment, water remediation. That may be an oversimplification, but that's what I gather from the research that I've done.
Okay. All right. So I'll just close with my summary and thoughts and recommendations. That as much as I like Al, and he does a great job for us, and I think as long as Al is the guy with his hands on the controls, I think we'll be in good shape and could probably find a better supplier. But I think from our customer point of view and running a business point of view, putting all of our eggs in one man's hands, we've just gone through what can come of that, and I don't think that is necessarily a good thing. If I thought that the cost was significantly less to go in that direction, then I think maybe it might be worth the risk. But I think we're going to end up paying a lot more to MP. I think they're not really in this business. I think this is a nice base thing for them, and at these rates they'll make some good money. But I think they're really an electricians, and maybe sophisticated electricians and working on pumps maybe and things. I don't think this is their primary business focus. So my recommendation would be at this point would be Watermark, but I'd like to save a final recommendation until I hear the discussion from the rest of the commissioners.
Okay,
Thank you, Dave.
John.
Right, well, I mean, Jack, at the very beginning, answered what was my first concern. And looking at the references, the only one that I saw that was somewhat familiar to Lunenburg was Drake. And as Jack mentioned, they've only been with them 2 months. So that is a bit of a concern. We don't really know what Watermark's hourly rate is going to be when we have to go to subcontractors, but that's apparently the case with MP also. Now, Jack, remind me, how long has MP have we been working with MP?
Well, there was sort of a gray area there when Swiss was on their way out.
Right.
What are we, in the 3 or 4 month range?
More than that.
More than that?
We hired him in April.
I thought it might be 6 or 7, but
Yeah.
Other than Al, have the other two been out and done any work on the pump stations? Are they?
Yes, I've met with both of them. Made a
Okay.
point to meet them. obviously they don't have more staff visit Lunenburg or any other place than they need to, but they accommodated me on at least 2 occasions to meet the other folks that were in charge.
Okay. But
I don't know. Go ahead, John.
Has anyone other than Al done any of the work at the pump
Yes.
stations? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so they have become a little familiar with our pump stations. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one.
Yep.
There's unknowns with both choices, but as we know, for some reason, we don't get too many people bidding on these contracts. I'm not sure why. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, but every time we do this, it kind of puts us between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah, therefore, John, I can tell you, this is, for me, this is a real, procurement is singularly at times the most difficult part of getting things done on a day-to-day basis. It's very strict, as it should be with municipalities. It's not as if the 5 or 6 of us owned a company and we could bring these guys in and really hammer them and work down the price. To your point, yeah, we've had, one bidder at times. Initially, we had a few, some that really were out of the picture in both directions. So it's always difficult when you have a large project, and this maybe not be as large, but it's equally as important.
From a town meeting thing, so I'm going to be out for at least a couple of hours. All right?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so,
No.
I guess that's all I have.
yeah, so John, I think we all feel that pain. It's a crapshoot. I guess, it is a 1-year contract.
Right.
It can be, as you all know by now, we can agree upon a second, and then we can agree upon a third, as far as the procurement regulations go. So, yeah, it's a gamble. You get a contract, it is a gamble. We're all pretty comfortable with Al. I'm get comfortable with the people that he works with, although they don't have a track record with us either. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. And I got to tell you, when I first started, I looked at those numbers. I said, goodbye, Al.
Yeah.
It just isn't going to happen. But and believe me, this is I'm straight up on this as much as I can be. I looked for every reason to take that low bidder. No, I looked at it in a fair manner, but any reason when the money is so much lower, but I just couldn't find a place in their references, in their website, in the work they've done, which is great work, where it fit into what we wanted them to do. And I'm not trying, again, I'm just trying to give you the facts as I understood them. It's you guys, it's a decision of you folks. I'll be happy to work with anyone that you choose.
You all set, John?
Yep,
Yes.
I'm all set.
Okay, Brett?
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Carl. All great points, Mike. My question, I guess, the monthly costs are so close. The 6 to 6, these hourly rates, these are just for emergency only. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I gotta say, Watermark is obviously breaking into a new territory. And, I'm not saying they can't handle it. I'm not saying that their subcontractors aren't good. And, the proof there would be, middle of the night, major emergency, if you can actually get them there. And you can only go by they, their subcontractors can do. And I know with MP, you've got a certain amount of that anyway. I'm a little nervous going with a company that basically has no track record doing what we need them to do. Their hourly rate, they may find months into it that, what the hell were we thinking? You know, we need to change something and come back to us with more like MP's rates, just to cover their backside when they realize, you know, they weren't charging what they should, something like that. And you know, if a Ford Motor Company suddenly broke into making ice skates, and that's a bad example, but I wouldn't bring my ice skates over there right away to have them sharpened when they've never done it before. You know, that's a really bad example, but I take it for what it is. Small companies don't scare me. As a small company myself, working with many other companies with small numbers of employees, there is an advantage to that in a lot of ways. You've got people who are used to working together. You're not ending up switching off employees a lot, doing certain things. You've got people who know how to back up each other when another one can't do it, typically. There's a lot of pros to a small business involved. I understand there's a certain amount of cons as well, because you just don't have 30 other people behind them. That doesn't always get you anything. And as Jack mentioned, we are talking about a year contract, not a 5-year contract. They've already got a good track record with us. My opinion, if we have two choices with the unknowns we have, I would have to go with MP, but that's my opinion. I would personally feel more comfortable going with MP, not just because of Al, but knowing that they all know our system to a certain degree, knowing that they're probably going to learn our system more if they've got a written contract with us. As a small business, they're probably going to focus on us more than they are already. And that's about the end of my input.
Thank you, Brett. And Brett, you bring up a good point, and I'm glad you mentioned it, zeroing in on the monthly or the monthly rates. You're right, it's only $200 and something. That's a good thing. Yeah. One thing I want to make clear is, as a small company myself, and Brett, you're a small company, when you go out and try to whack this, you sit there, and this is a big deal to Emprey. This is not, they're taking this very seriously. So they must have sat there and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And they don't want to let the town of Lunenburg down. So when they came up with these rates, I'm sure, as well as I would have done, to say, we got to make sure we're covered without really knowing. Now, one of these things, Jack, and you can help me, is this is it's not their contract. You can still sit down and talk to them and clarify some of these numbers. Is that correct?
I always question the procurement. That's why I go to the town manager. But I would expect and think that what they bid is for hourly rates is not negotiable.
And I'm just saying is maybe not negotiable, but clarification. And I think that you have the right to talk to these guys and say, listen, what is this and what is that? And that I know is legal. So clarification of this.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine line.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is, and again, Brett, thank you for bringing that up. We're looking at the monthly service. But right now, the last couple of years, you had our previous supplier who got big and lost control. And I think I'm not that in a nutshell, but that's exactly what happened. You had a company that got bigger. We hired them when they were small. They did great for the first few years, at least when I was on the commission. They got bigger, lost control, and ended up losing control, which is why we're here today. So if you take a look at the last couple of years, you're paying SWS, and Carl, you would know this, about $150,000 a year. Is that correct? Carl?
No, I don't think we got it. I don't think we got there.
I think it
With
was
small water, you mean, or?
small water, yeah. You were nowhere near the budget. In fact, when we were talking about this, they were 50% higher. John, you might know better. You're on, hold on, John, you're mute. Oops.
I don't remember the exact number, but they were higher and it seemed like they were going to head in a higher direction every month.
Yes. So,
Well, that was due to the, that's the point that you've all made, Carl's made, John, we've all agreed on this point, that their lack of attention on a daily basis
yes,
equated to, they're charging higher because they had so many more emergencies. That's one thing we can all agree upon.
Right.
So,
And
Mr.
I think at the last meeting we had with them, that became quite evident and I think was admitted to by them, so.
the other thing too is
Yeah,
that,
Mr. Chairman, I think it was less related to small water getting large than losing Al, and that's the piece that really worries me. It was losing Al that we lost that good hands-on proactive work, and that's what concerns me. Now we're gonna go to another company that's pretty much
Mr. Luck, let me finish my
depending on
thought.
Al.
I'm gonna finish my thought. As far as the other thing with this company, they're local, where the other one's on low, so I don't know what their response time would be. And Brett, I agree with you. I like small companies. That's what made America great. And that's my opinion. But I have one screwed up question. And Jack, I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to call you and say hi. My name is Dave McDonald, and I understand that I'm on the sewer commission in Worcester. Could you please give me a reference of what Emery has done for the town of Lunenburg for the last 7 months of employment?
You'll have to talk to my secretary about that.
We're done.
What's the point you're trying to make? I think the point you're trying to,
How has Emery done for the town of Lunenburg, in your opinion?
well, they stepped into a difficult situation. It's always difficult when you come in and somebody's broken their contract or otherwise the contract has disintegrated, be it in any sort of industry, engineering, otherwise. So they came in a difficult situation and righted the ship, and they did so without breaking the bank. Now it's difficult to make that comment or to make any comment without bringing up the operator who we cut our teeth on, or he cut his teeth on our system, who knows it well, and brought that, we brought that here. So I would give them, if you were thinking of hiring them, I would give them a chance. I'd give them high marks based on what I can only give you a recommendation on what they've done in our town.
Thank you. I know we're running a little bit late. I apologize for the later start of the beginning of the meeting. I know some members may have to leave. So without further ado, I'd like to go around the board and have a vote. Who would you like to?
Well, did Mike get a chance to give his comments?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Here's the first
Oh,
one.
you did? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got a lot of things going here.
So let's put it in this way. All in favor of hiring water, let's see. Anyone in favor of hiring Watermark? I'm gonna go around the board, say yay or nay. So Mike, would you like to hire Watermark?
Nay.
Carl?
Yes,
John?
No,
Brett?
Nay.
And a no for myself. So Jack, if you take the necessary paperwork, we can sit down.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need a vote. I don't think that was a legitimate vote. Not that I don't know which way it's going to go, but
Let's put a motion out there to accept Emery's contract. I need a motion.
I'll motion to accept Emery's contract.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Just one clarification question. We talked about it being a one-year contract, and I don't remember, I'm sure you do, Jack. Is it 1 year or is it through the end of this fiscal year?
When we do the paperwork and begin the contract, I do believe, I could be incorrect. It's a good point. I do believe it's for 1 year from the signing of the contract, at which time that process would begin. But that's a great question, and I think we should check on that to see if it goes to June 30 or goes to, let's say, September 16th, whatever.
You know what, Jack, that is a very good question, because I'm assuming hopefully we'll be back on our cutoffs next year when we're supposed to be doing this, our regular town cutoffs, which are what, June, July, whatever?
Well, the end of the fiscal year is June 30, so I'm glad Carl brought that up. That's a good point. I don't know if it changes your minds in terms of the motion or the vote, but it's an excellent point.
It doesn't change our mind. It's just, we got to make sure they put the dates right on the contract.
Yeah, well, yeah, that will be done by the town manager, reviewed by council, reviewed by you.
Okay. When you
So
say,
I would modify the motion to say that that we would select MP for a period of 1 year or through the end of the fiscal year, whichever is recommended by the procurement manager.
Mike, would you withdraw your motion?
Or just amend it.
Mike, you want to amend your motion to what Mr. Luck said?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay.
Second, you need a second.
We got a
I
second.
will second the amended motion.
Okay.
Well done.
Okay. All in favor, Mr. Devakis,
Aye, yes.
Mr. Luck,
Nope.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Mr. Ramson,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Any other discussion on that? I'd like to have some public comment. Anybody else have anything before I go to public comment about the contract that we just approved? All
Well,
right.
just that we'll do,
Yeah, we're
put it in
good.
the hands of Barb and the town manager and
Yes.
make sure it gets in the right people's hands to
And I think
execute.
we have that temporary contract going until the 15th of September, if I remember right. So you got a couple of weeks to,
Well, you're on schedule, which is good. Congratulations. It looked at some point like we wouldn't make this date, but we have, and so good job.
all right, thanks for your effort, and Barb and Heather too. Mike, I know you got to fly if you want to go.
Okay.
And at this point, I'd like to go with public comment. Mr. Rogers, you out there?
I am, Mr. McDonald. Let me ask you a question. Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. Let me ask you a question. Is this meeting that you're having right now in the form of a hearing or just a regular sewer committee meeting?
Sewer committee meeting.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's appropriate then for me to comment because it's I don't know as much about the situation as you do, but I would just give you a little a view from 10,000 square feet, 10,000 feet. I'd watch this contract like a hawk, and I would, having been placed in situations like this, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. And the other thing that I would like to know from a taxpayer's perspective, to put the small waters expenses over the last 2 years on a sheet and put the MP proposal on it to see what the differences are and how much comparing apples with apples it would be. But I just don't, if it was a hearing, I would say more, but it's not, so I will not say any more. Okay, yeah. And that's the reason I called in, was because I saw this on the docket and I thought it was a hearing kind of a thing, so that you could accept comments about and discuss about the specificity of the proposal. So I thank you for your time.
You know what, Dave, you're welcome to have coffee with me anytime. We can do coffee. I'll be glad to buy. So I haven't seen you.
Jesus. Wow, that would be great. My heavens. Yeah, that would be fine, Dave. Yeah.
I hope you do.
I'd like to do that sooner than later if you could.
Sure.
Thank you.
Tell you
All
what,
right. Sorry?
Good night.
Yeah, good night. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
We lost everybody else on the board, so now we don't have a quorum. So we got public comment. Mr. Luck, do you have any public comment?
Well, this kind of stinks because we don't have a quorum. We no longer have a meeting.
You're still entitled to have comment.
I don't think so.
Really? We're not voting.
The meeting is, I just my one man's opinion as a resident at this point. I think the meeting dissolves when you don't have a quorum.
Okay, then I'd like to say good night to everybody and see you next week.
Okay, my comment is that this is really not right. This comment should have been at the beginning of the meeting. Dave, you knew I had a public comment.
I'm going by the agenda, Carl.
Important.
I'm going by the agenda, Carl. So, okay. Guys, thank you very much. Jane, you got everything? Have a good night, guys, and see you next week. Oops.